I've got a couple of questions that have come in through the internet and through email, which I'll ask at some stage. But before I'll hand you to the panel to introduce themselves and to say hello. Chairman.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed, John. And this must be the real stalwarts who come after a game like that and sit and listen to us. So thank you very much indeed for coming. Someone did ask before the game whether it was very sane of us to arrange a meeting like this immediately after a game against Doncaster Rovers, and we were sort of brave and went ahead, and is delighted that we saw the performance that we saw. So just by way of introduction, I'm sure that everyone knows them, but Tony Rathell to my right, and then we have Simon Hallett, John Morgan, and of course Martin Stuns, our Chief Executive at the end. In the last one of these that I had, Simon was watching from the eastern seaboard of the States and sent me a critique afterwards, and his main critique was I spoke too much and didn't listen to enough questions, so I'll try to correct that now. But just a sort of quick update. I mean, to be quite honest, it's been sort of the ship has been sort of sailing happily along since we last met. Off the pitch, we are slightly ahead of budget financially. So we're doing well on that. We don't budget for fortune income, so we've had some money in from Curtis Nelson that wasn't budgeted. So the financial position is better than we had expected when we started the year. On the pitch, we obviously know where we are. Fingers crossed that continues. And then clearly the big sort of gap, if you like, of things that we'd hoped to achieve that we haven't to date has been the grandstand, and there's been a sort of bit of an update on that we are hoping to proceed with a scheme before too long. Now, you know, very happy to try to answer questions on that, but it is very difficult to do so until we've got the full detail worked up. So I would ask for a little bit more patience on the grandstand. When we have got some plans we can share with you and debate with you and get feedback on, we aren't going to put plans straight into the plan, as we'll hear from you guys first and try to make sure that we can reflect as many of the views as we can before we put those in. But with that, and having had my clear instructions to shut up, stop speaking so much and listen more, I will. What I suggested was, just prior to kicking off to the questions, that it might be of interest, it might not be, to just hear some reflections from Simon and John on their first however many days as a director and shareholder. A couple of hundred anyway. So shall I pass across to you, Simon?
Thank you. Thanks, James. Thanks, everybody. I guess the thing that's really struck John and me most is about the passion of the fans. That won't come as any surprise, because clearly the people in this room and those who've been at the ground today are amongst the most passionate. But it has also struck me that there's still a job to be done here. I think, you know, James, the board, Martin, and so on have done a fantastic job of getting the ship, you know, on an even keel and sailing in the right direction. And as I was quoted in the Herald, I think that it's time, now that we're on a sounder financial footing, to start thinking more about the future and thinking less about the past. I think the club has a bright future. I think there's a lot that Argyle does that has struck John and me in particular, you know, basically as being football fans, the role of the academy, the role of the Argyle in the Community Trust. This is a fine club with a great basis upon which to work. So I think you'll see that we're starting to move forward now. It's no longer a rescue operation. And obviously, as James says, you know, part of that will be the grandstand. But I think you'll see that we will be more open, we'll be more transparent, and we look forward to engaging with you. It's been a great 6 months, not just because we're top of the league.
Thanks, James. Thanks, everyone else, for coming this evening. I just really wanted to add, in reflection of my 6 months, 6 months, was how much of a responsibility it feels like we've taken on. When I'm very aware of, and have been made aware of, the commitment that you have. I often talk to friends about the green blood that runs through the Argyle supporters, and that is being taken very seriously by me, and we will do our darndest to make sure we do right by that. And as time goes on, hopefully you will judge us on what we're trying to do. We will make mistakes, I'm sure, but hopefully we will make far more correct decisions. And I would finish off really by saying, these kind of exercises are very positive for us. We need to know what people are thinking. Please just don't wait for these kind of forums to ask the questions. The club has the email, has the web, has the phone. Ask the questions and we'll do our darndest to answer them. We're in this together. We're not trying to do anything other than do what's right for the club.
That's great. Thank you, Simon and John. Just for those who haven't noticed, we had, I think 2 of our directors must have popped off to the gents, and when they came out, they found that the rest of us had gone. So we have Richard Holiday and Peter Jones in the corner, so if you have any particularly difficult questions, we'll pass them to them. There was one question I was going to start with that was raised at the last fans forum, and again, my apologies that we've been tardy in addressing this, which was the question about we agreed to award 5 prizes to the people who'd made the most effort to get to Wembley, so it wasn't those that travelled the greatest distance. And just quickly running through who the winners were of those, as I say, who made the biggest sacrifice to get to Wembley. I feel, having watched the performance, most of us made a sacrifice, but that's personal experience. So the 5 winners were Michael Godwin, who travelled from Canada, where he moved in 1968 to watch the game. Jordan Wise, who's the assistant professor of English literature and media at a university in South Korea, who rearranged his classes' whole lecture schedules to fly to the match. Jim Smith, who made the trip from Cornwall despite being in the middle of vital treatment for a rare form of cancer. Liam Donovan, whose journey involved a whistle-stop tour from Benidorm to Alicante to Birmingham to London and then on to Plymouth. And Alan Kennar and family, who call themselves the Jolly Oggies, who converged on the famous arch from Spain, Denmark, Nottingham, Devizes and Plymouth. So they'll be receiving a Wembley mug, a personally signed thank you letter from Derek, and a pennant signed by this year's team, together with a 2017 pocket diary. So, I mean, those stories, I mean, they are reflective of many stories of people who put in huge efforts to come and watch the team at Wembley. So, very many thanks to them and to everyone else who made that journey. So I will do as I'm told now and shut up and pass across to...
Sorry, just a tiny thing. Yeah. At half-time, John Back took me to meet a guy who'd actually come from San Diego with 2 airplane flights, 1 train, 3 cars to watch today's game. So people are coming from all over the world, not just to Wembley.
Absolutely right.
So, questions? Who's first?
Thanks, James, for organising these meetings. This is good. Although we all want the grandstand to go ahead, will it have any negative effect on any budget for Derek come January?
No, it really won't. I mean, we have made it clear in the press, I think, that we will support Derek in January, and we're sort of very conscious that we want to build on the position that we have. So the grandstand funding will be totally separate from the funding that will go into the football budget and won't have any adverse impact. I mean, one thing which may just be just some stats I came across the other day, and the facility that we'll have supporting the football club, all the revenues will come from the facility, the conference and banqueting centre supporting the football club will go into the football club. And if you look at what the Chiefs have achieved, they generated 6.6 million of non-match day revenue from their facility last year, from non-match day revenue, the profit from which was over £1.5 million, I understand, went back into the football club. And so it's really, really important, not for this year's football budget, but to support the football budgets in future years. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
I don't know if you read in the local paper a couple of weeks ago that Plymouth Argyle Steward have been voted the worst in League Two. How do you sum that up in some way?
Martin.
What was the criteria for the vote?
It was in the Herald.
Yeah, but what was the criteria behind the vote?
I can't remember. I read a little post in the Herald and then I read it on...
Well, we have friends of ours from the stewarding company over there, and I think Colin will confirm that we have had conversations with him with a view to trying to improve the service that we do give to fans, and we'll continue to engage with Colin and his team to achieve that. So we are doing our best to improve.
What was just adding slightly to that, what was slightly disappointing with the reporting was that I think that same survey found that we were the most friendly club to come to. Was that right, Martin?
Yes, I believe it was, yes.
And so, that would have been lovely to have seen that as the heading, that we're the most friendly club to come to. Because I was speaking to someone again who at lunchtime, who goes around a lot of football clubs, and he said that he hadn't come across a club that was more friendly than our club. Not just, it's not about the directors, not about the stewards, it's about the atmosphere that we have at Home Park.
Yeah, I'm not saying our stewards are bad, I think they're really good, but when I see people putting stuff in Herald about that, it's saying a bad image about Plymouth Argyle. We don't want that.
No, I totally agree with you 100%. And I think there's two solutions there. One is to work with our colleagues stewards and try to improve the offer. I think secondly, it's to work with our colleagues at the Plymouth Herald and try to, if we are the most friendly club in the land, that should be the headline in my view, not the fact that our stewards aren't perceived to be as good as other clubs.
Sorry. Whilst we're on stewarding, can you just clarify why the stewards push the people back away from the edge a couple of feet? I just don't see the logic in it at all. People like to get close to the pitch, watch the players. The stewards are wandering up and down, pushing people back 2 or 3 feet. I don't get it. And it upsets a lot of young lads trying to get there with their dads and whatever, and they're just pushed back.
Yeah, I'm not aware that people are being pushed back from the wall. I know that people are being asked to sit down because it's been interfering with the views of other people. That's what I've been told. Particularly where there's been disabled supporters sitting at the front. We have had complaints and we reacted to those complaints.
But just on a constructive basis, we've got John back here, and I think what would be really useful is that if supporters have got views of what the stewards are doing well, if they could let us know about that, so we can build on those behaviours. If they also let us know what they feel we're doing less well and need to improve on, again, if we can feed it into John, because this is all about getting better, isn't it? It's we're not perfect in any department at Argyle, and we want to get better in every department. So if we could feed back through to John, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you, James. I can actually add a touch to it. I understand that there is a ground regulatory issue because of the way the horseshoe was constructed, where we've got the concourse at the front, which not all grounds have that. We've got actually a regulatory duty to keep it clear. It's not at our behest. It's certainly not at the stewarding company's behest. We have got a responsibility and a requirement made of us to keep the gangway clear. And I know that many of you know I stand at the front with my young lad. So it is something that affects all of us, but it's a requirement made of us.
Good evening, gentlemen. There's a lot of fans who are really pleased to hear that the Far Post Club is going to be opening again. Could you tell us whether the club will be running it or somebody else? And another thing that a lot of fans would like to know is, will it be another membership scheme like it used to be? And if it is, will the ex-members get priority?
Martin, are you best to answer that?
Yeah, I'll take that. The Far Post Club will be run by the Green Taverners. We don't have any detail on what membership will look like. That's not been discussed as yet, but obviously it's on the agenda and we will do so with the Green Taverners. I think the point that you make about former members is one that's well made, and we'll have to seriously consider that as a priority.
Okay.
One of the burning questions that I've noted, and I've just come back from New Zealand and I'm not in the flow with just what's been going on recently. But are we going to have a refurbishment of the stand, or are we going to have a brand new stand? What is going to be the budget? What sort of architect are we going to get? Because what we want, and those who sit on the Linters want to be looking at a fine viewing stand that's opposite us, not a hotspot. We know in sports that have gone on for many, many years, been blocks here, blocks there, and what are people left with? Not a lot. We want you to leave us, and those who follow us, and myself, a legacy. Something that we can all be proud of. And I hope that when you sit down with your architect and your budget, that you'll give it as much thought as you can to make sure that what we have got is the best that we can afford. Therefore, we start with a good budget, a good architect, and let's hope you'll take it on. Plus, we must have all the facilities for the fans and the shop, etc., etc. It's just not to be a stadium. Yes, I take the point about and how we can follow what they've done at Exeter Chiefs, which has been wonderful. I don't think you'll be as successful because Exeter Chiefs have three great things in their favour. One, on the M5. One, they're 1 hour nearer London, and two, or three, I should say, is that they're very safe close to Exeter Airport. But we're here where we are in Plymouth, and so let's make the best of it, and we will be relying on you, gentlemen, to make sure it happens. But please do leave us with a legacy that we will all be proud of.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed for that. I mean, the only bit of that I disagree with is that we can't make a better fist of it in Plymouth than the Chiefs has done in Exeter, because everything that you say is true. We have a drive to work population of 450,000, 265,000 population. They have 110,000. We have a city which has a coastline to die for. They don't, in terms of the conferencing market, and so on and so forth. So you can play it in terms of the eateries. We've got much better eateries in Plymouth than Exeter's got. In Exeter, the hotels, the scorecard doesn't look quite so bright. But what we are going to do is we aren't just going to. I mean, we'll clearly come up with our straw person of what we think good looks like. It will be within a budget, not suggesting that we'll be able to accommodate more sort of fanciful ideas, but really, really keen to put forward our best thoughts on what can be achieved, and to have everyone critique them. And if we can, if we can spot ideas that are better than ones we've had that we can accommodate within the budget, we'll clearly accommodate them. So we'll do our best, but and we'll listen hard to what others have to say, and adjust where we can sensibly and where we think it makes sense.
Sorry, thanks, James, and thanks. I mean, everything that you're exhorting us to do is what we are trying to do. As I said, we are now in a position where we need to think about moving forward. We've brought back the grandstand, as everybody here knows, somewhat controversially. And I think that gives us a platform on which to improve not just the old stand, but to improve facilities throughout the ground for fans. I was walking actually from the Mayflower stand via the Devonport to the Lyndhurst, and I got, there's a gutter broken, and I got dumped rain on. I mean, it's just unacceptable. But we are now at a stage where we have the money to start not just redoing the grandstand, but I think it's fair to say redoing the whole of the ground. It needs tidying up. It needs a little bit of investment here and there. The Far Post Club is one example that the Green Taverners are doing. And I think over the next year or two, you're going to see not just big plans that we'll share with you when we can, but smaller stuff going on the whole way. We want Argyle's home park to be a place where fans, not just the diehards, are prepared to come, put up with the crap, but they're happy to come on a casual basis. I know that there's controversy over plastic fans and so on, but we want people who are not diehard Argyle fans, who want to come along for an entertaining afternoon and watch some football and have a good time. And that means having decent infrastructure for them to enjoy.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for coming out this evening. Could I first ask that we have one of these fans forums every week, because I can't remember the last time we had a fans forum on a day when we didn't win. My second observation is I know that Tony Rothwell was telling me that nobody's asked him a question on any of these fans forums. And it wasn't so much a question as I felt it was time for us to welcome you back on the board officially, Tony. You got a lot of stick when you came back on for being part of the old order, old new order. But you've put your money where your mouth is. You've put your heart where it is in Plymouth Argyle. And I think most of us would publicly welcome you back onto the board.
Now he's blushing under that tan.
He said not to ask him a very difficult question, but it's not a question, it's a comment, which I see is generally recognised. My question really would be, you worked miracles to turn back this historical debt that you inherited. There is obviously still, though, a debt that the club has. And I wonder if you could explain what that amounts to, who that might be payable to, how that might get in the way of future plans for Far Post Club, squad additions or grandstand.
I don't think there is much of a debt left, but I'll let James answer that one if I can. But can I just say something to you while you are here? Thank you all for coming. Perhaps next time you could speak to the people that sit next to you in the ground and bring a few more people. 8,500 people here today to see us win. We're all here. There's 80 or 90 empty seats here. But I don't want to leave on the downsides. But James, can you answer that one about the debts? Yeah, thank you.
I'll do my best. In terms of the football creditor debt, which was the total football creditor debt, I think, was 3.8 million. We paid £1 million off initially, and the other 2.8 million has been paid off. There was also a loan of, I think, about £340,000 that was a debt by the old company to the old Argyle Trust, the community trust. And we agreed to take that on and pay that off, and that's all paid off now. So the remaining debt, and I look to Martin, and this is other than normal trade creditors, the baker, the butcher, the candlestick maker, those sort of creditors. But the main two debts are, there is about half of a loan which we took from the council to buy in some of the football credit debt early. So that's around £400,000 to be repaid. And then there are loans to three of the directors, Simon, Tony and me, which are 5-year interest-free loans with no financial triggers or anything. So they're in there rather than equity, but they don't put any burden on the club in terms of interest or repayment. So we're in a very, very strong position at the moment. The benefit of buying back the stadium, it would have cost on average about £200,000 a year if we hadn't bought it back. It's £135,000, but it went up 10% as a minimum, 20% as a maximum every 5 years, and just kept on going. And then if we got into the Championship, it went up another chunk, a big amount. And then if we got into the Premier League, it went up an even further amount. So, taking out that, Simon's totally right that, a really important part of buying back the stadium was to buy back our home so we could invest in it, if you like. But a very important part was, saving a couple of £100,000 a year that would have gone up. And I can't even remember the numbers in the Championship, but it was a very big rent in the Championship when we got back there. And then the buyback price went up by the level of rent inflation every 5 years. So if we hadn't done it this year, it would have cost the club an extra, £200,000 to £400,000 if we bought it back in another 5 years' time, on top of the rent we paid.
Thank you, James. Just a couple of questions from the internet that around ticketing and membership. I'll ask them both together, but we're asked, firstly, why is there a fee for printing tickets at home? And secondly, there was a question around, is there any chance of doing an Argyle Plus membership for next season where you could pay a bit more than the normal membership but get something like Argyle Play and a playing shirt included as part of the deal?
The fee for printing the tickets is one that's imposed on us by the ticketing company, so we just pass that on. We're not making a profit on that. We're just passing on a cost that we incur. So that's that. As far as additional membership is concerned, I think that, and I'm looking at Peter Jones now, I think something like that was done a few years ago, where we had sort of integrated package of memberships. I'm more than happy to look at it again. I don't think it got a lot of traction the first time, but we are sort of 5 years on, I think, Peter, from when we did it before. So these things are always worth reviewing.
Good evening, gentlemen. When we're looking at the new stand, I've always had an issue with the family area has always been, and I think sometimes strategically it's not the right place because of the banter between two opposing fans at times. So if we're looking at the grandstand, could the family enclosure be put with a grandstand?
Well, that's a really interesting point. There's sort of two contrary arguments. Just putting those to you is that underneath the Bum Park end, we've got some really wonderful, and if people haven't seen them, I'd really encourage you to go and see them, community and youth facilities. And we very intentionally wanted to have, I mean, banter's great, but our young kids should be able to go and socialise with young kids from other supporters and should be able to engage. So that community space is open to both sets of fans, and it does sit under the Bum Park. And I think if you haven't had a chance to sit, if you go and look at it, ripping all of that out would be a real travesty. Actually, it would be a bad thing. The other bit is which is a really interesting question, isn't it? With our club, with our sport, do we want to moderate the behaviours that aren't acceptable for young children, or do we want to move the young children away from unmoderated behaviours? And I think we, as I mentioned, this conversation over lunch, one of the most experienced football managers I've met, who's been around many, if not most of the clubs as a player and as a manager, has said to me, this is the most friendly club that he's ever been to. And I think we want to build on that, and we want to, sort of knock down some of these beliefs that you can't have young kids from opposing teams, having a bit of banter and a bit of fun, playing together in one environment. So we should debate it. My personal preference, as you can probably gather, is we clearly need to be thoughtful about it, and there will be certain matches where we don't want our children sandwiched between the opposition fans and our own fans. But I think my personal view is that we should try to build, retain the banter, but moderate it rather than accept unmoderated behaviour.
Thank you, James. If I could also just add to that, it touches on one of the first questions that was asked around the stewarding and the reporting in the Herald. But within the club, we are a family-focused, community-centred club and are proud of that. And it's a genuine thing. Every decision that we make in the club is looked through the lens of being family-focused. And our stewarding company, who we contract in, works at our behest in taking action, robust action, against any behaviour that contradicts that on match days, probably more so than many clubs, because we are genuine about our values. And I do feel more than a touch sympathetic to the bad press that they get when at times they are following what we're asking is to take robust action against antisocial behaviour in pursuit of our club values.
Could I just, and I'll get wrapped for sort of giving an opinion without a question driving it, but one of the things that all of your board is really focused on promoting and just getting out there, because we just don't talk about it enough, is Argyle in the community. And just a few stats, and this is your club, and it wouldn't exist if your club did not exist here. Last year, Argyle in the community, which is a charitable foundation, put £1.3 million into engagement, into education, into health in the community. We had 6,000 children, primary school children, a week coming through our programmes. Next year, this current year, we're looking at seeing £1.5 million going into the community. We employ more people focused on engagement, health, and health education of Plymothians, kids, but also older people than the whole of Plymouth Public Health. We have more people doing that than the council does, which is extraordinary, and I think it's something we should be really, really proud of. And they are such driven people. They're so focused on doing the right thing as they never tell the story. You know, it's just an incredible... If Plymouth as a city had to go out and raise a bond, you know, raise money to fund that, they would have to raise £100 million, and that is what our goal in the community is delivering. Sorry, Graham.
If I could add, I mean, I think John and I, in our initial impressions, were saying that we're underselling what we do in the community in terms of building the Argyle brand, and not to be kind of a little bit more cold-hearted than James about it, but if we can make this a genuinely family-friendly club, we will attract a younger demographic. We will attract fans who are going to be around for the next, well, longer than me, let's say, and some of you. And we will build a club that will, you know, outlast all of us here today. Plus, we will attract larger crowds. And again, you know, everybody here today, everybody in the ground today will come, even when the product is crap. We need to make it a product that people will come because it's fun. That means making it family friendly. It means making it so that the mums aren't scared of their little kids getting frightened. It means making sure that the mums don't mind when their teenage kids come here that they're not going to get in a ding-dong of some kind. And that's really the goal. And, you know, that's a wonderful thing to be warm-hearted about, but it puts more people in seats. And more people in seats means more money for the team. So, you know, I implore you, encourage people to behave well, encourage people to be friendly, and we'll just get bigger crowds, and that means a better team. And, you know, ultimately, I like the warm and fuzzy stuff. I'm very proud to be shareholder and director of Plymouth Argyle, but I want the team to keep getting better as well.
Yeah, can I endorse everything that Simon's just said and what James said about Argyle in the community? It's a fantastic resource which just doesn't get the publicity that it deserves, and it's wonderful, and many other clubs could learn from it.
Your attention please, there's no colleague announcement. Can Tyler please report back to reception? That's Tyler to reception. Thank you.
Perfect timing. I see the club at a watershed moment now, because the ground is within the ownership of the football club. It's an opportunity to step forward. We're top of the league. We've got windfall money to invest in the team to ensure that we get that promotion that's been so elusive in the last couple of years. But the future is going to be building the grandstand and the supporter facilities and all that goes with it. But the real issue is, how is it going to be financed? That's always been the issue about the grandstand, how it's going to be financed. And I know you might not be able to answer it exactly, but you have a resource in Higher Home Park that adjoins the ground that's not within the football club ownership. Is that going to come back into the football club ownership at some time? Is that going to be the area where development takes place to fund the grandstand? How do you think the grandstand is best going to be funded? That's essentially the question I'm asking, because that is how the future is going to be dictated for the football club, the funding of that grandstand.
Yeah, and very, very fair question, Graham, but unfortunately we're not in a position to announce that at the moment. I mean, just on the Higher Home Park bit, and again, speaking to someone who understands development better than I do, is the challenge with Higher Home Park, the land, the car park land, the office land next to it, is that you need an anchor to draw footfall there, to make people come there, beyond the twice weekly events we have with Home Park. And the cinema was going to do that. The cinema isn't a real option while the one is going up at the Cineworld's going up at Bretton side. So if you just bear with us, when we announce the plans for the new grandstand, we will articulate how we're funding it. And again, very happy at that point to be critiqued on it. That's great, thanks.
James, while I hand over the microphone or panel, there was a question around...
There's one in the middle as well.
There was a question while I'm passing the microphone up around ticketing priority for the next couple of games and the ambiguity on our website with a strong caveat that we're not to tempt fate.
Was that the question? Okay. Strictly not tempting fate because we've still got a very difficult hurdle to overcome at Newport Wednesday week. We have got to think about how tickets would be allocated for Liverpool should we get there. There is clearly going to be a limit on how many we're allocated. As you'll all be aware, season ticket holders get priority. But even if every season ticket holder took a ticket, it wouldn't take up all our allocation. So the issue then becomes how we best allocate to supporters that are not already members. So that can be a challenge to try and make it fair to everybody. So all we've put out on the website at the moment is a suggestion that it would be a good idea to be registered on our ticketing database, and that it may be a good idea to have a ticket for either today's game or for Newport game. That's not to say that is going to be the criteria, because we haven't finalised the criteria yet, and we will do that as soon as we know whether we've qualified to the third round and we've got a trip to Anfield in front of us.
This is just a simple question about the maintenance of the stadium, basically to shut up somebody on one of the websites. Can you confirm that the galvanising problem you've got around the horseshoe, that you have got a programme in place to correct that?
Yeah, we've not only got a programme for that, we've got a programme for much wider maintenance requirements. I think it's fair to say that during the period immediately before administration, there wasn't much evidence of maintenance going on. Certainly in the period of austerity since, we've had to be extremely careful with the resources that we've had. Obviously focusing things on essential safety, health and safety. But we're very well aware that there are things in the stadium that need addressing. And we have been working up a programme of not only ongoing maintenance but preventative maintenance. Clearly we can't do it all at the same time because again it still takes resources. But the board is completely unanimous in following a maintenance plan that is going to make the stadium safe and comfortable for fans to be watching their football.
Well, I just hasten to add, and I know Martin didn't mean this, but the stadium is safe and is safe for fans at the moment. But that the Fire and Life stuff is the bit that we've focused very hard on to make sure that it is kept safe. So.
I've mentioned it once already, and I'll mention it again. I got dumped on by buckets of water this afternoon, Martin. So it's in Martin's goals to come up with and execute a plan. So now I'm getting wet. It's more urgent.
Work is being carried out continuously on the roof. I'm afraid we have got a problem with leaks, and every time we fix one, we find another one. But it is being addressed.
I was just going to suggest that Simon being dumped on was one of the sort of few benefits of having a dilapidated stadium, but there we go.
It was also in the plan, Simon, for you coming back from the States.
Hi guys, thanks for coming here this evening. I've just got one question about the club coaches. As an away fan, I like to travel to a lot of away games, and often for me, because under-16s can't get on the coaches, the only option I have is to buy more expensive train tickets, which don't help the club at all. What I would like to know is, why can't under-16s get on the away coaches, and can this be solved in the future?
Well, that's really, really helpful, because I wasn't aware of that. So do we know the answer, Martin, or do we need to take that away?
I think that criteria is actually laid down by the travel club and the stewarding that takes place on the buses. I'm quite prepared to be shot down if I've got that wrong, but that's my understanding. I'll certainly take that away and look at it and speak to the people that steward the buses and see if there's something can be done about that. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, what we'll do, if we may, we'll put something up on the official screen once we've tested that. But I mean, it's a really good point, and thank you for raising that. I wasn't aware of that.
Thanks, guys.
the last meeting, you said you wanted to engage with any fans who came forward with suggestions. And I'm just wondering, with the news about whatever's happening with the grandstand, you've thought about creating a focus group prior to engaging further down the road with architects when it could very well be too late. Because I'm sure you might appreciate that there are a number of fans with experience in building, conferencing, etc., who would be more than willing to put forward their ideas sooner rather than later. Not only that, possibly on the subject of stewarding and catering, again, there are fans who would be more than willing to attend the odd focus group, discussing the situation with the staff amongst the Argyle team, supporting, not against, but supporting. And okay, you can take it or leave it, but at least our voices can be heard.
No, I mean that is very much the plan. Well, it's a slight variant on that. What we'd like to do is just commit some thoughts to a piece of paper, so that we've got a straw person for people to look. Because if we don't have something to at least kick the tires on, I think it's quite difficult to have a debate which is sort of without at least a plan to look at. But that will be a first cut, and it won't be the expensive version that goes before the planners. It will just be a straw person that we can sort of look at. But what we are going to have to be, and just making sure that we haven't given the wrong impression, is that we are out of the trenches. We are absolutely on the front foot. We have dealt with the debt issue. We're dealing with the built environment, with the infrastructure issue. We're investing more in the football team. But football is never going to be the land of milk and honey. It's always going. So there will be things that all of us will probably say, "Good Lord, we'd all like to add that to the grandstand plan." But we might have to push back, because although we'd like to do it, it won't be something which is fundamental. But we do want to sort of move forward with the new grandstand.
I'm sort of more interested in the sort of practicality side as well, rather than overextending the budgets. I'm more realistic than that.
Great, thank you.
Going back to the ticketing issues, obviously you've got season ticket holders and you've got white memberships. There's been a lot of talk on websites about fans, especially away fans, fans who've got families who can't afford season tickets. Is it possible to have some sort of scheme where on your databases you can keep track of who's been buying tickets to sort of well, what would you call it? A priority scheme. So underneath your season ticket holders, white members, you can actually identify which other fans have been to X number of games, bought tickets home or away for the bigger games?
We have that information if people have bought through the ticket office and use their registration number. Obviously, we can't cover off people that have been to matches either home or away where they've just bought tickets on the turnstile. We don't know who they are. But this is why we're recommending that people do register and buy their tickets through the ticket office. Then we know the games that people have been to, and we can use that information and probably will.
Yeah, I'd just like to reinforce that. Being an away fan myself, I don't get down to Home Park very often. Cause my son and I, we live up in Chester, so I've just come down for today. But it would be nice if there was some sort of recognition of the people that do go to away games as well as the home games, because we always buy our tickets through the ticket office, and we're mostly at away games. So it would just be nice for that support to be recognised in some way.
That's great. Well, it's very useful if we can have all these thoughts. I mean, one thing, if we, as Martin said, and I'm deeply superstitious, not tempting fate, because we obviously aren't there yet. But if we do get there, any system we have for allocation of tickets will be, there'll be winners and losers. So we'll do it as fairly as we can, but can't guarantee that everyone will be happy if we get there.
Good evening, gents. prior to going into administration, when Drake Circus first opened, they had a merchandise shop in Drake Circus. I just want to know, is there any plans for that to happen again in the foreseeable future now we're out of administration?
I think it is quite unlikely, even during the championship years, when the retail offering was only about £1 million a year. That shop was losing a huge amount of money, so it's. I mean, there is a question which we look at each year as to whether it makes sense doing a pop-up shop in over Christmas, for example, in the city centre, but we haven't typically found the right locations and been able to make it work.
No, I mean, the issue is location, the cost of renting property there, and also staffing it. You can't staff a retail unit like that with just one person in. There has to be some relief, and it means additional stock has got to be obtained. So it is actually quite a high-risk exercise to do that. As James said, it did lose money, and I think you've got to be a really big club like the Manchester Uniteds or Liverpools of this world to be able to make a separate retail unit pay like that.
Any more questions? Well, ladies and gents, we've been going for just under an hour now. I'm looking to the panel. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover?
I mean, just one thing from me, John. I mean, certainly I've got 2 cats at home, and over the last 3 games they've been kicked quite hard. So if you can go back and stroke your cats this time, it's be really appreciated. Cats will. My cats now look sort of very frightened when I walk back in through the door. So look after your cats. But thank you very much indeed for coming. You know, totally echo Tony's point. You know, we are very keen to be, you know, challenged. These sessions do make us. You know, we go away, we think about it. And you know, some of the challenge we've had today will impact on the decisions the board takes. And so, you know, very, very keen for more people to come and, you know, keep on pushing us, challenging us. That's a good thing. But thank you. Thanks, John.
Thank you, James. Thank you, ladies and gents.